folks. Welcome back to the WPL morning show. One last time, in this league stage of the WPL, what I wouldn't say fitting ending, but then Delhi Capitals, right, sort of sealed their place in the eliminator courtesy. Controlled 5 wicket win, I'd say, because till the end, you could sense there was some sense of panic. They were not chasing a massive total, but then I don't know. UP was just probably still trying to keep themselves in the game, right? We deep dive into all major talking points from this game. And joining me is Rishab, of course. And Rishab, I'll probably start off by asking you your first thoughts on the game itself, right? Again, the internet was entirely divided as we were talking off record as well. Was it a case of UP just being really bad? Sorry for the word bad here because of literally how they were. Or was it just Delhi, executing their plans really well and ensuring that they were on the right side of the result?
Yeah, I think a low scoring thriller of sorts, if you can say, not exactly thriller. But yeah, UP to start off it were bad, no denying, because in such a pressure game, when you know the stakes are high and you have to win, 120 is just not enough by any means, nowhere close to enough. Um, I get it that the pitch was slightly probably on the sluggish side, wasn't as easy for stroke play, but even then, 120, given the context of the game, you weren't going to be able to win with that score, wasn't enough at all. Yes, they did pick. There was one phase where it did look like this might go down the wire and they might just threaten to pull it off and all of that, but there's only so much you can do when you do not have enough runs on the board. And like you said, there I've been coming across a lot of divided opinions that Delhi did their best to choke once again, and they made a mess out of the chase and blah 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 and all of that. But end of the day, what matters despite everything is the 2 points that they got and that they've qualified. They are the team in the playoffs now, so none of that really matters because getting the win was ultimate. There was no pressure of run rate and all of that. So they knew they just have to somehow cross the line. So yeah, we can say it did get slightly tricky. We can put it that way. They would have liked to chase it a lot more comfortably, but winning is ultimately what mattered and in the end, and good pressure game for them in that sense before the eliminator. So they've already been tested, you can say that way. So they'll take it with both hands.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar, and Delhi will, take this scrappy win their way, right? Because this ensures that they book their place in the eliminator versus Gujarat Giants, which is undoubtedly going to be quite the stern test for them. And for a lot of, I think, Mumbai Indians fans, who are sort of backing UP Warriors to pull off the unthinkable and a win in this case, yeah, I think are clearly disappointed because UP just couldn't do that, right? It's very ironic that MI fans were supporting UP Warriors considering UP had defeated them twice in the season. But yeah, I think it's just one of those cases of ironies in cricket. But again, Rishabh, just coming back to this match itself, like what did you just make of the playing 11s and team combinations, right? Because UP felt like they were playing some other league itself, like they could just experiment, do whatever they want. I mean, it wasn't a dead rubber. There's still a lot to play for, but they enforced so many changes in that playing level, which I was just not sure like what was the rationale and mindset behind. And Delhi too, right? To their credit, sort of stuck with their core and believed in that. So again, your thoughts on how the playing 11s for both teams panned out?
I mean, not much to talk about for UP, honestly, because even though there were the stakes were high and all of that, even though UP, for them to qualify, they'd have to win by a very big margin, 150 odd runs, something, to overtake MI's run rate, and that was realistically not happening. So, keeping that in mind, they probably did look to make some changes, test some guys for the next season. So, fair on them for that. Anyways, whatever they have done so far in the tournament hasn't been working anyways. Didn't work for them, so might as well bring in a few people here and there. But for Delhi, it was important for them to stick uh, to their strongest 11 or their core, because for them it was very straight. You win this game, you go through. So the stakes were much more higher for them in that sense, and you would want your best 11 on the field when it's a must-win game, especially knowing that it's make or break. So Yeah, Lizzie, Shafali Verma, Laura Wolvaardt, all of their guys, they had all of their main guys in the 11, and all of them contributed somewhere or the other. Laura's innings, Jemmy's innings, Marizanne with the ball, Chanel Henry with the ball. So it was good. Well, despite the game going so close, it was still a well all-rounded performance in that sense.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there, Rishab. And even just looking at the role that the toss played, right? I think Jemmy Rodrigues has been one lucky captain winning what 7 out of 8 tosses this season. A feat not a lot of captains can boast of. And it was obvious, right, that they were going to bowl first. Put UP under not the bus, like under this cannon with their batting attack. And possibly what could be the best start was getting Meg Lanning out the very first ball itself, right? I'm just looking at UP Warriors and their power play too. They were 36 for 3, and it was always going to be difficult, right, to claw their way out of trouble. Like you could see Charlie not come in, sort of, strike a few boundaries. But like, how decisive do you think were those early wickets in helping, DC claim entire control?
Definitely. There's one aspect where you can really push UP back this season. It is the batting that hasn't quite clicked as they would have liked to. And when you're three down for 30 odd in the power play, I think Delhi's fast bowlers really got the job done there. Again, credits to Marizanne. You've got the two big wickets. Deepti tried, she did try hard. She looked like she was getting in. She got a few boundaries as well, but just wasn't good enough for the day. Honestly, you'd expect a lot more. But to get Meg Lanning for a golden duck, I think that was the beginning of the nail in the coffin, because a huge blow right up there, and for a team that hasn't been doing quite well, it can really morally put you down right at the start of the game, and that's what happened. They just kept losing wickets in a flurry. You're losing your top three in the power play in a game where you know that there's a pressure to put big runs on the board, because Delhi boast of a quite good batting lineup. So you're always playing catch up. Then, right, you always have it in your mind that we've got to score, we've got to score, we've got to score, we've got to put up the runs on the board, and that pressure can you either get out of it, or it happens like what it happened today. Getting to 120 as well was a big push. It didn't look like they would even cross 100 at a stage, honestly. If not, for Shika Pandey and Simran Sheikh, the back end, um, good knocks, good contributions from them under pressure. Otherwise, even 100 wasn't looking on the cards at one point. So I think the real damage was done in that power play. The top, those three wickets that Delhi got at the start, they really pushed them back right from the start, and from there they just made sure that UP didn't get away with this.
Yeah, because I think once Delhi, seized control of UP Warriors, they quite literally never let go of it, right? When you just look at the innings progression itself, UP Warriors slid from 36 for 3 to 52 for 5. Then, they lost the sixth wicket, seventh wicket, again in like quick succession. For you, Rishabh, if you were to put in perspective, like where exactly do you think the innings stalled, right? Was it a lot about short selection, DC being very mindful about their bowling changes itself, or just the pitch, right? Like, do you think that also sort of played a role?
I think the wicket was, like I mentioned, slightly on the slower side, and the stroke making wasn't that easy. But then that's where you need to really show your skills as a batting unit, right? I mean, you cannot completely blame the pitch, because you are not going to get conditions in your favor always. And really, I think credits to Jemmy's captaincy, the way she, made use of her bowlers, the bowling changes that she did. I think that was phenomenal in a game under pressure, where that the pressure was always more on Delhi, because the stakes were higher for them between the two teams. So kudos, great captaincy there. And like we spoke just a while ago, I feel the real damage, where the innings went down, was really in that power play, where you lost three wickets, and you never really had a big partnership that you needed in between after that stage. They just kept losing wickets at regular intervals, and in no time they were like, what, they were 90 odd down for 8 in no point. And that has been the season, that has been the story for UP all season. Actually, they just haven't managed to get those partnerships, apart from that one partnership in their last game against RCB, the opening 50 stand that they got. Apart from that, they really haven't come together as a batting unit. It doesn't work on one, two, or three names playing a big knock and getting you through. You've always got to have those partnerships. That just hasn't happened for them, and they've not been able to really respond under pressure, honestly. And when you aren't able to do that, then sums up how the season has been for them, more or less. So the punch was delivered really in those first 2-3 wickets in the power play itself. I think that was a major setback for UP, and they just couldn't really recover from there.
And I think another bowler, who can be attributed to being the record in charge, right, for UP Warriors has to be Marizanne Kapp, right? Her spell 3 for 30, again, taking massive wickets, that of Deepti Sharma, Charlie Knott, and Deandra Doughton. Again, Rishabh, like, what stood out to you, right, about her lengths, the matchups, and what she eventually ended up doing to UP's middle order there?
I mean, it was important, like we've been talking, to strike right at the top, and the value of those wickets, the value of someone like Deepti Sharma. She could have stayed for a longer while. We know what she could have done. 20, 30, 30, 40 odd runs as well could have been a really different story, because it did get tight and close towards the end. So, and when you have that responsibility, as I- Marizanne Kapp is one of the most senior most players in that Delhi lineup, and you could very well say she's probably the leader of the pack when it comes to that fast bowling unit. In terms of experience and in terms of the knowledge that she has. She knows what she's got to do, and especially on a wicket like this. So I really feel she's stuck to her strengths in that sense, and getting those big wickets was really key. Deandra Doughton as well, although she hasn't had that great tournament, but she comes with that reputation. She can get going. We know what she can do. The West Indian flavor is always there. So yeah, I think getting those 2-3 wickets, big wickets right at the top, because and then UP don't have enough firepower at the from the middle to the back end. Really, it's really just the top heavy. 3, 4, 5 batters. They're really dependent on them to get going. So she was so you're pretty aware of when and where you need to make that damage, and how you need to utilize the start of the innings on a wicket where it wasn't comparatively as easy to bat. So really well done, Maris and Cap, there on getting those crucial wickets. And even Chanel Henry, along with her, provided really good support uh, in those initial phases. The two of them together, I feel, Maris and Cap, yes, of course, did her thing, but I think the two of them together, that duel, really, dented UP's batting order, and the game was pretty much just done there, honestly.
Yeah, Marizanne Kapp absolutely deserves credit, right, for the way she went about her bowling, and has quite literally made bowling look so simple, right, in this season of the WPL, not just getting timely wickets, but being so immaculate with her line and length. But although, the deluge of wickets was happening at the other end, we still had Deepti Sharma, the newly promoted opener for UP Warriors, holding her own. Scored a 19 ball, 24, looked assured for, most part of her innings. And probably that's the one innings you can say, was very fluent there. Again, Rishabh, do you think UP missed a chance to build around her, at that opening position? And again, having Deepti Sharma open really means like troubles for your rest of the batting order, and probably a lot of introspection needed.
Definitely, because even in today's game, Deepthi is their highest. Yesterday's game, sorry, Deepthi was their highest run scorer, and she's someone who can take a bit of time initially, but once she gets in, she can get you those runs as well. She can bat through, basically. So when you have someone like that who can bat through, you need to be able to build around her. I think a lot of indecisiveness throughout the season, really. Hurlin coming up and down at 3-4. Deandra Doughton batting at 5. Not quite sure if that is the ideal position for her, honestly. Probably up the order. Charlie Not 12 of 12 she did get today, but I don't know if again that was the right choice to even play her, or suddenly bring her, in at that number 3 spot. And then when you know you don't have enough at the back end, it's really important, like you said, to build around. When you have someone uh, like Deepti in the top, who you know she can really carry that batting order, but then she also needs people to score around her. That's how it works, right? That's how someone, guys like Virat and all of them, that's what they do. They bat through, and you have people around them, and then towards the end they accelerate and they go big. So that's generally how this works. But hasn't worked for UP, not just last night, but throughout the season. I feel um, indecisive calls with their batting order. I feel that has there's really not been stability or consistency in that sense, and it's reflected in how their season has been.
Yeah, because I think when Abhishek Nair himself, right, was asked in, I think, the interaction with the journals in the press conference, he mentioned that he really can't point out, what's gone wrong. If a coach, who's supposed to know these answers is clueless, then I think it just is very reflective of where the team morale and mindset was like. There's a comment that comes in that says DC finally got into the playoffs. UP Warriors performance is really poor. They just don't have the firepower to win matches. Again, Rishabh, here the team does boast of someone like a Simran Sheikh who came in late in that batting order, scored what 22, and I think it briefly lifted the run rate too, right? The kind of boundaries that she was sort of getting, maneuvering the field and all of that. Again, when you look at UP Warriors and their innings, especially from this match, like was this the only intent-driven knock that gave you some glimpse of that hey, they can actually hit a few boundaries?
Simran and Shika, both of them, I feel both of them did show that intent, to score runs, especially when you're losing so many wickets, the score's really down, the team's really down. You can tend to get into that shell that we've got to just bat out the whole 20 overs and get as many runs as we can, or save our wicket, and all of that. But they did show intent. Simran got three boundaries. Shika got three boundaries as well. Both of them batted 150 plus strike rate. So it's not like you could not get those runs. It's just you had to really, stick and be out there, and that's when your shot selection really matters. You need to have clarity in what you want to do out there. So if the two of them could also play those kind of knocks and get those boundaries, I don't see why the others could not have. Big names there, Hurling the old, Deandra Broughton, all of these guys really, failing to score. So you've got to really, when you haven't got that kind of a start, it's really tricky, and then somewhere you've got to make that bold choice between, do you want to go into the shell, or do you want to at least show some intent and try to put some pressure back on the opposition, or just try to create something out there, and that wasn't seen from the UP batters. So, and even coming back to Abhishek Nair, not being able to point out, there are actually a lot of things that haven't worked well for UP this season, right from their batting. They've actually got, it looked after the auction that this season would be really good for them. They've got some big names on paper at least, but it hasn't really gelled well for them. The batting order, they haven't been able to get it right, and like it was rightly mentioned, they don't just didn't seem like they have the required firepower to really go through or win the tournament, or even dominate, for that matter. Even the bowling hasn't really clicked for them. uh, Shika Pandey, what you expected from her? I feel she's past her prime in that sense with the bowling. You don't have that out and out pacer that you need out there. Too much for Sophie Eccleston hasn't clicked as you would have expected her to. Too much for Asha to do as well there. So really, lot of things that UP need to ponder upon, especially with their especially with the decision making, the kind of decisions they've taken this season, especially in that batting order, and even fielding for that matter. I think they've dropped so many catches. Even in yesterday's game, they hadn't dropped a few catches, probably could have gone even more closer than it did go, because it did look like at one phase in the middle where they were putting up some fight with the ball at least to get 5 wickets. Delhi lost four for 20 odd runs at one phase, and pressure can really get to you in these kind of games, especially. So they've really got a lot to ponder upon: batting, bowling, fielding, and even the decisions being taken as a unit in general. So lots to reflect upon, I guess, for UP.
Absolutely valid points there, Rishabh. Brilliantly articulated too, right? I mean, imagine us as, armchair critics and journalists being able to come up with these pointers of what went wrong. It is very shocking that, you'd have a coach come up with a statement like that in the press, so that, it's hard to pinpoint what really went wrong. It really stuck out to me. I read the article a couple of times to be like, did this man actually say that? Then obviously, he went on to explain like they lost Phoebe Litchfield, how, they were not consistent. Nailing that number three position was also something that they couldn't really do, after they lost her. Avinash again goes on to add something really hilarious. He says all UP Warriors fans should get refund. And I think the one thing that UP really did get right this season was that pink jersey, right? I mean, absolutely loved how it looked, and probably with the refund, a pink jersey would really help. Tushar also goes on to say DC almost made a meal of the match, if not for UP Warriors' abysmal catching and not using bowlers properly. My God, the number of catches that UP Warriors dropped was just ridiculous, right? In fact, I was just
That's
watching the highlights.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what I mentioned, right? When you've gotten that phase where you've gotten four quick wickets in between, you're defending a low score, then your fielding and catching becomes all the more important, really. And who knows, who really knows if they had held on to their chances, could have been even closer, or they could have even probably, pulled off a low scoring thriller. So it's really game of margins when it especially comes to these kind of encounters under pressure. If you don't take your chances, then teams like DC are good enough to make you pay, and that's what happened.
Rishabh, in this case, not even just teams like DC. Any team will, take you for a ride, because Laura Wolvaardt was dropped, three times last night. And we saw, right, the impact that her knock eventually did end up carrying. But very valid point there, Tushar. I think the fielding was definitely abysmal. And Delhi Capitals, again, doesn't look like the most assured team heading into the eliminator. But then, again, knockouts can bring out something incredibly special. This will be the first time, right? Delhi will be playing in the eliminator, because they usually just book their place in the final. So let's see how that pans out for them under Jemimah Rodrigues, the captain as well. We have another point from Sports Fan that goes on to say, while they were so keen to give chances to new guys like Charlie Knott, Amy Jones, but didn't even give one game to Trisha. I think I agree with this point. You had Kiran Navgire, who was like underperforming for a good 4 or 5 games. Why didn't you give a chance to someone like a Trisha, right, who has done well in the under 19 World Cup, domestically as well, has been labeled as a child prodigy, and probably that could have solved, right, a few like questions about the opening role itself, Rishabh.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about making the most, or understanding and managing the resources that you have, right? When you go in with a certain plan and a certain combination, and you see that it's not working for you, then you've got to take some of these decisions. But it's also not just about you know bringing in these overseas names and expecting them to do well. You've really got to look into the resources that you have, and they could have, anyway the tournament wasn't going that great for them, so might as well try out your some of your local and domestic players, give them that stage, give them that opportunity, so they're also prepared going in for going into the seasons ahead, and you also know their ability, and you know how you have to work on them to make them better in the coming seasons. So probably something they also have to look at is managing the resources that they had. You can say you lost Phoebe Litchfield and all of that, but these are the times where you've got to make the most of whatever you have. I mean, even RCB lost Ellis Perry, but they didn't let it affect them. You can see how they've come together as a team and how they've managed the resources. So I don't feel you can point out that as a reason that we lost a certain player and it made problems for us and all of that. You still have 11, 10 others, and you have your whole squad, right? If that was the case, you pick just four or five big names and it's done, but doesn't work that way. So really for Abhishek and the whole management, I feel, managing the talents and realizing and making the most of the resources that they have, something they'll have to plan better going into the next season.
Yeah, completely valid point there, because the moment you put the entire onus on one player and how their loss affects your team combination, then you know you are in deep trouble and your auction strategy hasn't really worked out that well. Uh, Even the whole aspect of Shweta Sehrawat getting dropped in this match, like the entire season, you do the absolutely, most criminal thing of using her in the wrong position. The moment, those performances don't come in at the desired position of your choice, you just drop her, right? It honestly does not make sense. I know UP was probably not treating this game as a one they'd want to win, probably just test out their bench strength, but then not giving the right opportunities to the players who are already a part of your playing 11 and then just dropping them does not make sense. I hope this is a cautionary tale for the rest of the franchises as well. Avinash also goes on to add that UP Warriors is the Kings 11 Punjab of WPL. I mean, at this point, they're not even comparable because Kings
Yeah,
11
no,
Punjab, yeah.
PVKs did a lot better the last season. Dude, they've also done, they've realized stuff. They did a lot better job, and that's why they even played the finals. So UP, like you were mentioning, first of all, not using players in the right position, and then if they don't perform, you drop them. So that really puts the morale down of the players, and there's that sense of insecurity that if you don't perform, you're gonna be out, and that unrest that you're probably there's not enough faith shown by the management in the position that is best for you. You're not given that first of all to start off with, and then you're just dropped. So lot of unrest, not just for the in the player's mind, but that way in the entire team, and that really, it really disrupts the entire environment, to be honest, and that shows in the performance. And quite obviously it hasn't been a great season to forget for UP. So again, just bottom line comes down to lot of things for them, more than the the players or the 11 and all of that. Lots outside of that from the management that they really have to ponder upon, because on paper they still had a really good team. You have those you have big names there, and you even have decent domestic talent in your team. So it's really about how you make the most of what you have, and they haven't been able to do that.
No, like I see where Avinash is coming from, right, with this point, because Kings 11 Punjab for the longest time, kind of had the right talent, but just couldn't, quite get their gadi going for some reason. And even UP Warriors, to their credit, right, I think besides the first season itself, where they did, eventually end up making it to the playoffs, the other seasons they've just, end up at fourth or, wooden spoon holders, which is never a good sign, right, for a team. In fact, just have a look at the stats for UP Warriors, right? They've played almost 33 matches in all four editions of the WPL combined. They've hardly won any matches, right? The number of losses are very striking. And even the performers, like the likes of Sophie X and Deepthi Sharma, are consistently the ones, right, who are topping the runs chart, the wickets charts, and all of that. And you don't see that contribution coming in from others. And contrast it with, say, someone like a Mumbai Indians or an RCB or even Delhi for that matter, you will see some very prominent names come in there. So I hope UP does take a lot of learnings in that way. Unknown Nobody also goes on to say Shipra Giri was a good wicketkeeper, good with the bat too, but having Meg, Hurley, and Deepthi together is another issue for UP Warriors. All are the same kind of batters. Again, couldn't agree better here, Rishab, because when you have batters of the same mold, right, who tend to take
True.
their time, are anchors too. Again, a slight question there about UP and the
Yeah,
strategy they went in with this.
100%. If you look at all of the other teams, RCB has someone like Grace Harris with Smriti, so that's how it works well. MI have Haley Matthews there at the top. GC themselves have Lizelle Lee, who can be really destructive. So you really need someone of that sort at the top, because Meg Lanning, Deepthi, both of them very similar players. They take some time to settle in and get going, and they're not those naturally big power hitters like someone like Grace Harris or Lizelle Lee, for example, right? So if you have players of the same mold there, if one doesn't perform or both of them doesn't perform, then it really affects the entire batting lineup, and that's what has happened with UP. So probably now that we look back, 100% probably an error in the auction strategy there, that would have looked to get in someone who's destructive in that power play, because they really haven't been able to get that opening combination going right as well. Barring that one game against RCB, I feel there hasn't been much good starts or impactful starts at the top that you really need, especially given that you don't have firepower towards the back end as well. You are already lacking there. So then if your opening also doesn't work, and you have players in your top four, two three of them who have a similar tempo or similar template of how they bat, then it is going to get exposed at some point, and that's what has happened for UP. So a very valid point.
Yeah, and I think after Mumbai Indians, UP was one of the teams that really was bad at power plays, right? And it is quite telling where they've ended the
Yeah.
season up with. And Sportsman also goes on to say that all that overwhelming support that Harleen got looks pale now. What did she even perform after those two knocks? Like I think a lot of people, like romanticize the fact that hey, she was retired out, came back with such a gritty knock and all of that. But Rishabh, after that, things have been slightly on the downhill for her. I mean, that's the nature of T20 cricket itself, right? You can't expect every time you step out and get those half centuries. But again, Harleen Deol, the way she's been again back to the same sluggish form, because again, this match too, right, was out for 11 ball three, which was
Three,
quite
yeah.
difficult. And again, not great signs coming in there.
Quite unacceptable, 3 of 11 even in any normal game, and especially this game where you know that you really need those runs on the board, because you've got to win. So the fight or the intent wasn't there, and you can't just really dwell in the past or live on that one good knock throughout the season, because Harleen's also someone now who's been around for a while, even for India. So she does come in the category of one of those senior and experienced players in the side. So invariably, you expect a lot more from her, and she's got to take that responsibility in the middle. Also, knowing that again, you don't have firepower at the back end, so you are that vital cog in the middle, and you've got to take it on yourself. And she's really lacked consistency after the barring the 1-2 knocks. She hasn't performed as you would expect her to. So it has been, especially after getting all that support. But even keeping all the noise outside talks aside, her as a senior and experienced player in the team, she could have taken. She's got to take a lot more responsibility upon herself, and she's got to work on her game. When things aren't working, you've got to reflect, and you've got to try to change the template. It's not like she doesn't have the ability. That one game she did score with good intent, and she did make quick runs. So if she didn't have the skill or quality, that wouldn't have happened. So it's there. So then you really try to look at what has worked for you and try to replicate that. Of course, it won't happen in all games, but you've got to try to stick to what's worked for you and try to as much as you can to replicate that. But that hasn't happened for Harleen. So even on a personal front or an individualistic level, a lot of the UP players, especially the senior guys there, have things to ponder upon on their own game as well. And because a lot of them haven't been able to create that kind of impact that you would expect. Sophie Eggleston, Shika Pandey herself, Harleen as well, Meg Lanning as well. All of these guys, all the big names that you expect to perform, not just Harleen here. As an entire team, all of these guys haven't quite really. There's not been consistency at all. So even on an individualistic level, lots to ponder upon for all of these guys.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully, again, a lot of the players just take a lot of learnings, right, from this season, because again, it's like a new era under Meg Lanning and Abhishek Nair, the coach itself. And live chat, we do see your questions and comments coming in. Please, do continue with that. Because again, Rishabh, just talking about the context of this match itself, it's, I think, fair to say UP Warriors huffed and puffed all their way to 122 for 8. You did talk about, Shika Pandey and her cameo, so to say, a 13 ball 23, studded with three boundaries that helped UP get to what I can say is like a slightly defendable, though, like a competitive total, at least something on the board sort of a total. But here's where I think we should take a moment to talk about Delhi's bowling itself, right? We've raved enough about Marizanne Kapp, the way she's been with the new ball. But Chanel Henry too, right, to her credit, in those 4 overs, getting two massive wickets, Nandini Sharma being so economical, and Sri Charni coming to the party, Minu Money again, continue to chipping in with those solitary wickets and all of that. All in all, Rishabh, a great day in the office for DC bowlers.
Yeah, 100%, because we can have all the talk about Marizanne Kapp, and she's been excellent throughout the power play. I feel this entire tournament she's picked up quite a few wickets in the power play, so she did her job as usual. But then when you've got to contain an entire batting unit to a total like 100, 120 odd, then you need, most days you need an all-round contribution from the entire bowling unit, and that's what DC did. They've not just picked wickets, but all of them have been so economical. If you see, there was not a moment where they really, let UP let loose, or that 1, 2, 3, 4 hours phase in between where they just scored a lot of runs. So they kept it tight throughout from start to finish. Shinel Henry as well, 4 overs, 2 for 25. Brilliant. Minu Mani there, 1 for 13, 2 overs. Again, very economical. Sri Charani, 2 for 22. Crucial wickets in the middle. Sneerana as well. Nandini Sharma as well. Even though they didn't get wickets, but it always helps when you continue to keep that pressure, because when 2, 3 bowlers are getting wickets, but those, you always target those 1, 2 bowlers and score runs of them. But even that wasn't possible for UP, because none of the DC bowlers really allowed that to happen. All of them kept it really tight from start to finish. So even for those who didn't get wickets, but an equally important job with those spells that I feel that they did. And overall it really helped them to dominate, and it really set the game up for them in that first innings. When you are restricting a team to 120 odd in a T20, no day that total is going to be enough, unless miracle 1 out of a 10 times you may end up defending that. But mostly that's not going to happen. So that is a huge boost, I feel, going for them into the playoffs, because GG has made that reputation of their batting this season. Very strong batting team. So when you're putting this kind of an all-round bowling performance going into a high pressure game against a team that has done so well with the bat, and they're sitting right there at the top, I think this gives a lot of confidence to the captain and to the team as a whole. So a huge plus on that front before the playoffs.
Yeah, because I think there were a lot of people, right, who were sort of criticizing Delhi's bowling, being very unidimensional in that way. But it's, I think, performances like this that reiterate that there's a lot of depth that has, sort of gone unexplored and is slowly coming through, right? As they say, it's peaking at the right time for Delhi. Hopefully, they can continue on that upward trajectory as they face a tougher opponent in Gujarat, right? Again, just talking about Delhi's batting effort now, chasing 123 of 20 overs. We thought, right, Lizelle Lee, Shafali Verma, again a powerful start there, but wasn't quite the case. And that's why you had someone like a Laura Wolvaardt, right? Although, she was dropped thrice, I really felt the way she went about with, sort of balancing her strike rotation, boundary hitting. In fact, when I was watching the highlights in the morning itself, some of her boundaries, my God, they're ridiculous. Like, the way she does it effortlessly too, right? Again, on that two-page surface, her innings of significance really tilted the momentum.
100%, because when you've lost an early wicket, even though it's a low total, this is where it always can get tricky. When you lose a wicket or two early at the top, you often tend to, that panic does come in, or you tend to go a bit into the shell, or you want to take it as deep as you can, and that pressure can make you do things that you don't want to. But that is where someone like a player of her caliber and the experience, simply the experience that she brings, despite being dropped twice, thrice, all of that. I mean, even after all that, you still have to make it count. It doesn't just come to you on a platter, even if you're dropped. She still had to make use of those opportunities, and she did, understood her role really well in the middle. It's not like she just anchored the innings, despite it being a two-paced wicket, like you told. It was slightly on the sluggish end. She still kept that scoreboard ticking. She got 7 boundaries. She scored at what, a strike rate of 130 odd, and that's just, I feel, enough for you in this kind of a chase. So she made sure there was no further choking or further panic for them, really, because it was also a crucial partnership with Shafali that she got, because had Laura Wolvaardt been dismissed at that stage, that 47 run rock hadn't come, then later DC losing 3-4 wickets quickly, I feel they could have really, they could have spoiled, they could have lost the game by themselves. Honestly, they could have made it much more worse. But that's where you expect your experienced players to deliver under such pressure situations, and that's what she did. The speciality of the knock, like I said, was not just making sure you're there and anchoring, but also getting those boundaries, maneuvering the gaps well, and keeping the scoreboard ticking. That's what you need. You don't want too much, you don't want to leave too much for the end in these kind of tricky chases, especially because that could have been a whole different story again. So I feel a really important knock in context of the game, and had that knock not come from her, then probably UP could have might as well have ended up pulling this off.
Yeah, that's definitely true, Rishabh, because even that partnership, right, with Shafali Verma, it was a 73 run partnership. A very unlike Shafali Verma knock, she took 33 balls for her 29, but was playing the role of, an aggregator, looked slightly off rhythm there. Again, Rishabh, if you had to look at how important this stand was in completely sort of deflating UP Warriors, how would you put it in perspective?
Definitely crucial stand, because after being 11 for 1, then you go to 80, 85 odd. They've taken their time as well. They've taken good time, but they've ensured that they kept the runs coming, and they did not, you know, they did not give away. And in a 120 chase, if you've gotten that partnership to 80, 85 odd, I think with just 40 odd runs remaining, the game's done there. That was the partnership. That was the one key partnership. And one more crucial aspect I feel is Shafali Verma's knock. Like you told, slightly uncharacteristic of her to get 29 of 33, but then that shows that Shafali is not just about going bang, bang, bang and batting at big strike rates and all of that. This shows that she does have the ability to, play the situation, understand the requirement of that situation and play accordingly. You had to get in that partnership when you have lost an early wicket, and you don't want to make things much worse for you. So for someone like her also to be able to understand that, and play that supporting role, I think another huge plus for them going into the playoffs, because she's not just this shows she's not just a one-dimensional player who's gonna just keep playing in one fashion, because a lot of players tend to do that in this format, irrespective of the situation. They just play their natural game, and they just play how they play. So that's not going to work for you every time. So in that aspect, I feel the key of this partnership is Shafali Verma showing that adaptability and that ability to take in that pressure and just be out there and build create that partnership. So I think that is another huge plus for Delhi going into the next phase, when you have people who can go beyond their natural game, or let's say their comfort zone or the template that they play in. Then that gives you a lot more confidence as an entire batting unit, and as the whole team as well.
Yeah, completely agree with you there, Rishabh, because there was a part, right, where you could sense that there was a sense of panic in that Delhi batting order. They lost Marizanne Kapp for a very unlike five-ball duck. Chanel Henry was dismissed there. But Jemimah Rodrigues, right, the captain sticking out there and, ensuring that Delhi ended up on the right side of the result of just 18 balls getting 34. Like, how decisive was her acceleration, right, in making sure there's no late twist in the chase, and she had an able partner in the youngster Nikki Prasad there.
100%. I mean, Jemimah's knock was one of the defining performances of this game, let's say. And she's also shown, because she also gets she more often than not, she also gets labeled as that kind of player who takes her time, and she can't she's not that big hitter, and she can't get you quick runs and all of that. That's her template. But again, as a captain under pressure, when you know you've got to win the game and you've just lost a few quick wickets, you don't want to further allow the opposition to pounce further on you or build on that pressure. So if that quick fire knock hadn't come there, it's already gone down to 19 overs. It could have been a lot more worse if that quick fire knock didn't come. So while it was important for her to stay out there, it was also important that she got those boundaries, got those runs at a quick pace, and that's what helped lift the pressure and put it back on UP even for a brief moment if UP did feel like they could make something out of this. And we've seen that Jemmy did it in that semi-final as well. That was an even bigger chase. That was a massive chase. So she showed her class there as well. And once again, she's shown it here that given the need of the situation, she can really adapt. And even though she's not a naturally gifted power hitter or a big hitter, she can still match, and she can score. She scored at almost 190 strike rate, and she's got 5 boundaries, not a single six there. So it's still not like she's tried to do something different or uh, try to force herself to get those big hits. She's just really stuck to her strength. uh, she knows what she can do. She's backed her abilities. 5 boundaries, not a single six there, so shows she's not trying to overdo things. And that was a big positive that worked for her. She's still batted at 190 odd strike rate, and that innings was needed at that phase, because otherwise, like you said, they could have further sinked into that panic mode, and that's what you don't want at that stage. And there, as a captain, as a leader, under that pressure, when you've got to simply win to qualify. So you really kudos to that knock from Jemimah. Not won't just give her self confidence, but again, so many factors in this game that will, despite it going down so close, lot of factors that way that will give Delhi immense confidence as an entire unit going into that playoff.
Absolutely, Rishabh. I think Delhi would, really be happy with this sort of a complete team performance. Although, there were a few hurdles that they had to sort of cross. And before we just move on to our live chat and some of the, questions coming in there, let's talk about UP's bowling effort itself, right? I think the biggest, talking point was that of Shikha Pandey, the spell she had, 4 overs, just giving away 17 runs. Deepti Sharma, as usual, being the usual suspect, taking 2 wickets and ensuring UP was in a comfortable position. And you had the likes of Deandra Doughton, Sophie Exton also, chip in with 1 wicket. And it is fair to say, it was quite the economical bowling effort, but the runs were never going to be enough to defend. But again, Rishabh, if you had to just briefly talk about UP's bowling effort, how would you look at it?
I mean, the fact that they were able to hold DC to 30, 40 odd runs in the power play, normally you would say that is a decent job done or a good start as a bowling unit. But given the amount of runs that you had or didn't have rather on the board, you've got to do much, much, much more better than that. Yes, Shika and Sophie Eccleston were really, on a normal day, you'd say these were really impressive spells, very economical. 4 overs, 1 for 17, 4 overs, 1 for 20. But again, comes down to the point that they did not have enough runs on the board, so it wasn't. There was a lot more push needed, so it wasn't. You know, it wasn't really enough, and even I feel post the power play, it looked like the lengths that they were bowling were. It was a lot salpa more defensive, and the singles were coming easily. The rotation of strike was happening easily. Being economical and stopping boundaries is one thing, but in these kind of games where you don't have runs off the board, you also want to be able to put pressure to not give those ones and twos, or let the batters rotate strike easily, because that's how you can build more pressure and force the batters, force some errors or force them to do something wrong. So in that aspect, that pressure wasn't there on. Weren't able to put that pressure on DC, because still the rotation was happening, the single doubles were coming. So slightly, better lengths that they could have bowled at after the power play. And They could have looked to attack more with their bowling in that sense. They've done really well, no doubt, to even drag the game that far, but just wasn't enough given the runs that they have, and probably too much to ask of the bowlers. Also, I feel in this format, defending 120 is never going to be easy, and the fact that they even got it down to 19 overs is a big thing against a team that has you know that has reputed batters out there, Lizelle, Jemimah, Laura, all of them. So even to get it to this point, I feel good effort, but again, not great enough. Simply not enough because they didn't have the runs on the board, and I feel they even needed support from the other bowlers in terms of picking wickets. Kranti Gaud slightly expensive there, didn't get any wickets. Deandra Doughton did get a wicket, but then she's given away 30 runs. In context of this game, normally that's a decent spell, but in context of this game, slightly expensive, going for 30 odd in 4 overs when you don't have runs on the board. Asha also, I feel, used for just 1 over. She went for 9 runs there, so not much clarity with her role or how they wanted to use her there, I feel. So, yeah, decent bowling effort overall, but just not good enough on the day.
Yeah, because if you really had to look at the loss itself, I think the one unit you would really not blame is the bowling side of things. Right? The fact that they were able to drag Delhi Capitals to almost the 19th over speaks volumes, right, about how much effort they put in. But you need the rest of your fielding unit and your batting unit to stand up and deliver. But let's cast our
Yeah,
attention
and
to the.
adding to the point that you mentioned, not that the fielding helped the bowling in any way. In these kind of games, you really need your fielders as well to help the bowlers because there's only so much effort they can put, and they really did give it their all. I feel dragging it to 19 overs, but then if you're going to be dropping so many catches, uh, that's where Laura took the game away from you. So you also, yeah, not just the other bowlers, but you also need your fielders to back you up in these kind of games, and that just didn't happen. So overall, from a batting and fielding perspective, poor display. Wouldn't blame, like you said, the bowlers much for the loss because they still did whatever they could.
Yeah, and to the best of their abilities. But Rishabh, let's also take a look at our live chat. Some very valid questions and points coming in there. Slightly from earlier, Shravan goes on to ask us, like, whom do you think have a better chance in the eliminators? DC coming to the group at the right time, or GG can still come up on top with their overseas players performing consistently? Before you answer this, Rishabh, I'd probably say I think GG slightly has the edge here because they look like, to me, at least a team that's speaking at the right time, have a lot of things working out really well for them. DC, again, just sort of had that backdoor entry. I know they had fate in their own hands. They won and they got there, unlike, teams like Mumbai who probably have to rely on other sources to do. But I'm sure we're going to see a very like blockbuster sort of match. But I think Gujarat might have the edge considering their form and, how players have been peaking. Over to you, Rishabh. Your thoughts on the same?
Yeah, wouldn't be wrong to say that DC would start as slight underdogs in that eliminator, and GG do have a few aspects where they can really probe Delhi. For that, for instance, the batting. If you get those top three, you get Meg Lanning, you get Shafali, you get Laura Wolvaardt. If you can break through that top order early, then Delhi is going to be under a lot of pressure. Last game was a different scenario because you know what you're chasing and it was a low score. But let's say they have to set a total or they're chasing 150, 160, then that is something, one aspect where they can really look to probe Delhi. And even with their batting, like we have been talking, they've simply been phenomenal there. So there are chances that they could even just bat Delhi or any opposition. You can just bat them out of the game. And even they can also target the bowling. Marizanne Kapp has been good. Srichard's gotten some wickets, but the likes of Nandini Sharma, Sneerana, they've put in good performances here and there, but I feel slight inconsistency in that bowling order. So few aspects where Gujarat can really probe Delhi. So do expect it to be a tight game nonetheless, because Delhi also have won 4 games. They have shown that firepower, and they've been pretty decently consistent that way. So should be a good game. But at this point, if we had to pick one team that might have a edge over the other, I feel it's got to be Gujarat, simply for how their season has gone and how consistent they've been. But also in Delhi's favor, if they can manage to hold or get the better of Gujarat's overseas players, that's where the domestic guys will be tested. I feel under pressure in a big game, so that will be interesting to see if that can happen. So that just playing Salpa devil's advocate for Delhi there. So yeah, I can go both ways, and sets it up for a really interesting clash, I feel.
Yeah, all in all, as you rightly said, we are in for a very exciting clash, because both these teams, right, not a lot of people gave them the chance to make it to the playoffs, but now that they've made it, time to make the most of it. Tushar, again, going on to add a point that we had spoken about earlier about Abhishek Nair just making excuses. Man, when Phoebe was the one playing, you lost 4 matches and almost were out of the running for playoffs. What are you even talking about? Completely agree with you. And here's where you expect like a little more insight from your coach into what went wrong, and not picking on certain players and using that as a reason to blame why your season didn't work out well. Sportsman goes on to say Deepthi and Ecclestone have been apart since the first season. How do you see their contribution and usage by the franchise? I think over dependence is the one word that like really
Yeah,
sticks out, because every single time expect them to deliver and do their needful, which to their credit they've done. But then again, you can't have a team or a franchise run by just 2, 3 players, right?
two
I
three
mean, Mumbai
players.
has done
Yeah,
it for the longest time, not to be a hater, but then it doesn't. This philosophy doesn't work, right, for all teams.
you need to really be able to build around those 2 3 players, and that's what UP haven't been able to do. Sophie's been off color slightly this season. Deepthi in patches has done well, but again the point is when these guys don't perform as expected, then do you have enough firepower as a team, or do you have people who can step up really? On paper, I feel that they did have players who could have stepped up, but that's where the team management really comes. How you handle the resources that you have. Um, so I don't know. They haven't been able to step up as a unit really, and like you said, you can't be relying or expecting on 2 3 players. To keep delivering day in day out, and to win you tournaments. That's not going to happen. You need an entire team really to contribute. Deepthi and Eccleston have been doing their part for all the seasons till now, but simply slightly unfair to expect just 2 3 players to carry your campaign through the entire season. That is not going to happen. They can probably win you a few games, but you are not going to win. Can't expect them to win you single-handedly, win you the whole tournament.
Yeah, that's completely true. And again, will be interesting to see what will UP Warriors' strategy be, right? Because I think before the auction itself, that they just had the one retention. They let go of 2 players who actually did well for them, then went back to the auction and sort of got them back. Not sure what it does to the confidence of players if you like let go of them and then again acquire the services and expect them to deliver time and again too. Shravan goes on to say in Vadodara, I think it will be a battle between Divine Rajeshwari Kanwar versus Kapp, Charni, and Minu. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, definitely looks like, a battle between the bowling attacks itself, right? Most of the times their bowling attacks have bailed them out of trouble. So, yeah, Shravan, agree with you. It's going to be a mouth-watering clash nonetheless. Also goes on to saying that DC's pace battery looks more stable versus GG's, as the Kashmi Gautam, really needs to find her rhythm. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Kashmi hasn't had probably the best of the season. The way she broke onto the scene, a few seasons back, that hasn't really happened this time. But again, let's see how she, makes the most of her opportunities. Another comment says, I'm happy for DC that they finally make it into the playoffs. Happy for Jemimah Rodrigues. She becomes the first captain who takes DC into the playoffs. A slight correction here. Meg Lanning, as a captain for the past 3 seasons, did ensure, they directly went to the final. There's no eliminator also. They were already booking their place in the final. For Jemimah Rodrigues, yeah, it's a first as a captain to ensure her team makes it to the playoffs. But yeah, Rishabh, you wanted to add a point here?
Yeah, I mean by playoffs, they mean having to play those eliminators and not directly the finals. But yeah, in her first season as skipper, really well done by Jemmy, because you're also carrying that burden of having played all the three finals, so you know that expectations there, and people are going to expect nothing less from you but than making the playoffs. So having dealt with that pressure, carrying the team, and even delivering herself when needed uh, as a player. So all around, I think she's done a really decent job in her very first season there as captain, especially for this franchise that, like I told, has a lot of expectations and that pressure, that burdens there, because you've played three finals, so you've been consistent, one of the most consistent teams in the tournament, but you haven't been able to win. So all of that pressure, she's done well to take them to the playoffs.
Yeah, in spite of the deluge of criticism that did come into, right, for Jemimah to be able to do this is great stuff. Sportsman also goes on to say how DC needs to sort out the panic they go through, especially versus Divine. They should, ponder getting Nikki up above, the out of form Marizanne Kapp with the bat. Rishab somewhere agree with this because this is a point I'd been talking about to one of our earlier guests in the WPL morning show itself, that Nikki Prasad batting at the position she's right now at 6'7" is just a disservice to a player of her nature, and probably having her come bat slightly up that order could really help out in that way. Agree with this?
Yeah, I mean, if Marizanne Cap playing about her clearly hasn't been working, her bowling is one thing, but her batting hasn't been that great so far. So, if something's not working and you do have someone who has that ability, who's coming lower, then you might as well give her that freedom of more deliveries, slightly put her up the order, and probably that could work out for you. She can deliver, so no harm in really making that change. And they could probably make to look those slight tweaks that you've always got to keep making if certain things aren't working. So yeah, fair. Don't think there's anything wrong with if they even do look at that shift.
Yeah, I don't think it would really upset team combinations or just the batting order as much. Continuing the discussion on DC's batting itself, another comment says Laura Wolvaart's performance is really not up to the mark. I hope she performs well in the playoffs. It takes DC into the finals. I think I slightly disagree with this comment because Laura Wolvaardt has had that sort of a season, right? I could say of two halves. A, she's batting out of position. She's usually an opener coming in at three. Again, challenges are entirely different. And the fact that she's still able to come up with some, meaningful cameos, case in point, last night's match itself, I think has proven, right, she's able to deliver. And if anything, right, Laura Wolvaardt is the big match player. You would expect her to come good. Rishabh, again, you agree with the sentiment? Like, did you expect more of Laura? Because Lazelli and Shafali Verma is always going to be a difficult, opening duo to have because of they either go big or go home. But Laura Wolvaardt, to her credit, has been doing her part of the lifting.
Yeah, if you simply look from the outside and look at the scorecard, you'll feel like, oh, Laura could have done a lot more better than she's done. Probably not up to her capability and all of that. But then you've got to also see that, like you mentioned, that she's not been batting at her natural position or where she's used to. So that's also going to take some time for you to adjust to. And despite that, there have been decent performances, and when it mattered the most, like last night, she has shown what she can do, and she did step up. You can argue all that she was given multiple lives and all of that, but even after all of that, you still got to perform. She could have even given UP a fourth opportunity and still thrown her wicket away, but that didn't happen. She didn't do that. She did realize her role out there. Not just was she out there and give the stability, but she also batted with intent. So she did what she had to under pressure. She bailed them out from that early pressure of an early wicket. So to her credit, she has performed well. Yes, you would expect her to do slightly more, but when your team's doing well overall in that sense, you'd really take it and you would really back her, because like you told, she is a big match player. We saw in the World Cup what she did as well. So nothing short of her, no lacking in ability or experience, or nothing to take away from her in that sense. So yeah, I feel she will come good, and she does have that ability to come good under pressure as well. So don't think really much to think or ponder upon there for in aspect of Laura. I don't think there's much to look into or read. Don't have to read much into her bowling.
Yeah, I think among the 99 problems that Delhi Capitals has, I think Laura Wolvaart's form is definitely not one of that they would be taking into concern. But we see where you're coming from. Another point from Shravan here goes on to say, taking no credit away, more than DC's bowling, it looks like UP had thrown their wickets as they know that just winning doesn't help them progress. I mean, I think deliberately no team would want to throw away their wickets or play bad cricket. It's just about a lot of things happening back in. I think we've spoken at length about things that haven't worked out for UP Warriors this season as well. क्रिकेट लड़की गोज ऑन टू आस्क अस क्या आप लोग WPL के बाद भी लाइव आएंगे इंडिया ऑस्ट्रेलिया सीरीज और राइजिंग स्टार्स के टाइम? Yes, cricket lurky, that's the hope, to continue these live shows and cover as much women's cricket as possible. Again, there's the Women's T20 World Cup that's happening later this year, but a lot of important series before that. So the plan is to keep coming on, and please keep supporting us like this as well. Rishab, a last few set of questions in our live chat, before we wrap. I know nobody asks us. I don't know what Kranti is doing. Her bowling in this WPL was just too erratic. Again, it's been that sort of a mixed bag season for her, right? Last time around, broke into the Indian team literally on the back of her performances in the WPL itself. But this time around, the second season jinx or the blues, so to say, have caught up with her. Again, Rishabh, if you were to just look at Kranti Gowd in isolation and just look at what hasn't been working out well with her bowling.
Yeah, like you mentioned, she's coming with that expectation that she broke out the first season, so you would expect her to perform even better or upgrade the next season. And she's been slightly on and off in that sense, but that can always get to you, especially for a youngster. The first season you come out, you do really well, but the next time around, teams are a lot better prepared for you, and there's always that chance that I wouldn't say exposed, but you are going to get, probably caught wanting, or teams are going to be better prepared against you. So that's the more she reflects on these things, the more she plays, the more advice she gets from the people she's around. That should only get better going forward, I feel, because this is something that tends to happen with a lot of new players who come in. So not much of a concern there really, but would be ideal if she does reflect upon her performance and what she probably could have done better, or I'm sure she'll come back better prepared the next time, the next season. So yeah, not quite as you would have expected her to perform, but I don't think it's a glaring concern really.
Yeah, hopefully she doesn't let this performance sort of define her going ahead, and there's proper monitoring and grooming, because it's a good pace talent that we have and wouldn't want it get off track based on just one season. Shravan also goes on to say that with Renuka being a senior bowler for India and also for Gigi now, what's the actual issue with her bowling? More or less, she keeps bowling leg side wide, erratic ones, which gives opposition more relief. I think this is a point Rishabh and I too have spoken about for the longest time. I think when she was playing for RCB itself, at least the first three seasons where she was just absolutely woeful to watch, getting a lot of things wrong, not being amongst the wickets. But Rishabh, again, that same pattern seems to be creeping back in for Gigi here too.
Yeah, I mean, when there's not much of the surface for her as a new ball bowler, she has more often than not been found wanting, and that has been the case. When there's not much seam movement or not much on offer in that first power play, that's where she has sort of struggled to get her lines and lengths right, and yeah, she's been more often than not she has been wavered, and at this stage, having been around for a while, having played these many seasons of the WPL, having played for India as well, you'd expect a lot more from her as one of those senior bowlers. So that one aspect that hasn't worked for Gigi in that sense you had Sophie Devine cover for her, so it hasn't affected the campaign that way. But if you have to critically look back, then yeah, Renuka's bowling is one aspect that has been one of those negatives, or one of those issues if you have to really pinpoint. So I think she's got to reflect and work on her game, that when conditions probably aren't in your favor, that's where she's really got to work on getting control on her bowling, those lines and lengths. You can't repeatedly you know be wavered with your lines and lengths, and you can't yeah, you can't be allowing batters that relief. She's given away too many extras for someone of her caliber, and being a senior player who's also playing international cricket for quite a while now. So yeah, you expect her to probably reflect and work on her game, and come back better the next season.
Yeah, because she's too good of a player and has that experience factor in her that makes her such a valuable commodity, right, for any team. And one last comment, Rishabh, before we close our discussion is from Shiv Prasad itself. He goes on to say, Meg Lanning saying in the press conference she'll be back next year. It was really good to hear. Legend like her deserves one WPL trophy too. This time around, not the case, with UP Warriors, but again, a champion in her own right. We would expect her to come good in the following seasons. But yeah, folks, I think that pretty much does conclude our very lengthy discussion. I think talking about the UP Warriors versus Delhi match. But Rishabh has one point to add here. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to say, but even if she does come back with this UP team, unfortunately, I don't think she's getting the trophy unless they really sort things out, and come back with better decision making, better utilization of resources, and better strategies overall. So unless a lot of things for them to make a major transition in just one season, but it can happen if they really put themselves into it. But given how things stand right now, unfortunately, even if she comes back with this team, I don't see her. But obviously, a legend like her does deserve three finals. She's not been able to win, and then going to a team that didn't even qualify. Uh, Really sad or unfortunate for someone like her. But hope things get better. When hope, first of all, this doesn't demoralize her, and she does come back next season, and that's a good thing that she said that she'll be back. But yeah, I feel she needs a lot more things to get better around her. Only then she's going to be able to get close to winning that trophy.
Yeah, I mean, Rishabh serving us the right kind of a reality check for most of us, yeah, who expect Meg Lanning and, who romanticize her, to be that deserving captain and player to win the WPL. Well, things will look difficult, right? Unless there's a proper, I wouldn't say revamp, but like better utilization of resources. And with UP Police and Meg Lanning, I think it's going to be like a long term partnership itself, right? It's not like Meg Lanning has international duties to return to, or besides playing domestic, so it'll be like she'll be involved in the game and coming back to the WPL and hopefully get UP Warriors across the line. Shravan also goes on to ask us, will there be any preview shows for the eliminators and finals? Well, we'll have to keep you posted on this, Shravan, based on guest availabilities and, if we do have time for it. Right now, it's a very busy cricket season, with a lot of things happening. But, we will keep our intent always, and priority for women's cricket and WPL itself. Again, I keep saying last comment, but Syed goes on to say, am I out of WPL? Finally, can't imagine MI's performances being this poor. Those two losses against UP Warriors really hurt them badly. Rishabh, I think here's where I'll probably get your thoughts on this. Something we were
Yeah,
actually discussing off record, but yeah, what are your
I
thoughts on air?
just told you this off air. The one thing, sorry to all MI fans, but the one thing that if UP Warriors have done well this season is those defeating MI twice in those two games, and that has really cost them the playoffs, because you don't expect a team like MI to be in a situation where they're dependent on other teams' results to go through. For two-time champions, one of the most consistent teams, so lots for them, their opening combination, and we've spoken a lot of things for them to ponder upon as well. But slightly lighter note, if there's one good thing UP has done out of everything else this season, it has been those two wins and knocking the defending champions and the most time winners out. So that is in to to make UP fans feel slightly good. That is one good thing that they've done, defeating MI twice and knocking them out. So that is your slight refund, probably, that you've knocked the defending champions out, and despite not qualifying, you have beaten them twice. So something to smile upon for you and all you UP fans, and take back in an otherwise disappointing season.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think Rishabh just cannot wipe off that smug smile from his face because I mean we're all RCB fans, but like in reality too, right? Mumbai did have that sort of a season, a very fragmented season, so to say, where a lot of things clearly did not work out well for them. But yeah, if we do eventually end up doing like an analysis episode, folks, make sure to tune into that. But yeah, that's all for today, guys. I know we started off by talking about DC versus UP, but it just eventually went on a lot of tangents, a lot of fun tangents, so to say. But first things first, thank you so much, Rishabh, for joining me across these 3 days to talk about the business end of the WPL. It's always fun to have cricket chats with you, and this time was no different. And to all the viewers who joined in the live chat, we loved the comments. Please keep them coming. We're planning some more fun things, as the rest of the year continues, be more consistent on YouTube. So your support is of utmost importance. But yeah, until next time, folks, stay safe, take care, and bye for now. Keep enjoying cricket.